The Friday, January 26th, 2026 episode of CBS Beyond the Gates explodes like a powder keg from its very first frame, delivering one of the most emotionally ruthless, scandal-packed, and game-changing hours the series has aired so far, as secrets that were buried with surgical precision are ripped violently into the open, alliances fracture beyond repair, and love stories are left bleeding in the wreckage, beginning with Madison standing alone in the rain outside the Dupree estate, clutching her phone as the final proof of Chelsea's betrayal flashes across the screen, her hands shaking not just from the cold but from the realization that the woman she trusted with her heart didn't just cheat. She lied, calculated, and chose self-destruction over honesty, and when Madison finally storms inside, dripping wet and trembling with rage, she doesn't scream at first, she doesn't cry. She simply stares at Chelsea with a hollow calm that terrifies everyone in the room, including Danny, who instantly senses that whatever is coming next will be nuclear, and Chelsea knows it too because her bravado collapses the second Madison says, "Tell me why I had to hear it from him," forcing Chelsea to realize that her dealer friend didn't just cross a line, he detonated her entire life. And as Madison throws the phone onto the table, revealing explicit messages, secret meetups, and a bank transfer that proves Chelsea paid to keep the affair quiet, Danny gasps, Chelsea breaks down, and Madison finally unleashes years of suppressed pain, accusing Chelsea of using addiction as an excuse for cruelty, of confusing chaos with passion, and of mistaking forgiveness for weakness. And when Chelsea sobs that she was scared, that she didn't want to lose Madison, Madison fires back with the line that will echo across daytime television for years. "You lost me the moment you decided I didn't deserve the truth," before walking out and leaving Chelsea collapsed on the floor as Danny looks at her with a mix of disappointment and fury, making it painfully clear that Chelsea didn't just lose her partner, she lost her family's respect. But the heartbreak doesn't end there because across town, Shanice finally arrives at the mysterious secret place. She begged Ted to meet her, only to reveal it's the abandoned community center where their affair first began, a place soaked in memories and unresolved longing. And while Ted initially believes this is Shanice's attempt at closure, she shocks him by revealing she's pregnant and doesn't know if the baby is his or her husband's, a confession that knocks the air out of Ted's lungs and sends him spiraling into panic, guilt, and a renewed hatred for himself as he realizes his reckless choices have now trapped an innocent child in the crossfire. And when Ted begs Shanice to tell Nicole, she refuses, stating that Nicole has already threatened her once, and she won't give her the chance to destroy her again, setting the stage for an inevitable and devastating confrontation. While back at the hospital, Naomi's cancer storyline takes an even darker turn as test results reveal the tumor is more aggressive than initially believed, prompting her doctor to recommend immediate surgery followed by chemotherapy, news that leaves Naomi numb and Jacob barely able to stand. And when Jacob breaks down in the hallway, whispering that he promised to protect her, viewers are reminded that this show isn't just about betrayal, it's about the unbearable weight of love and impossible circumstances, and that weight becomes even heavier when Anita overhears the diagnosis and blames herself for pushing Naomi to delay treatment in favor of family appearances, unleashing a guilt spiral that threatens to fracture the already fragile Dupree matriarch. But just when the episode seems saturated with sorrow, Beyond the Gates pulls off its cruelest twist, yet as Vanessa receives a phone call that freezes her blood, a voice she never expected to hear saying just 3 words, "I'm not dead," and suddenly Doug, presumed dead and buried both emotionally and legally, re-enters the narrative like a ghost with unfinished business, revealing that he faked his death to escape enemies he claims Vanessa helped create, a revelation that leaves Joey reeling, Vanessa defensive, and viewers questioning everything they thought they knew about the past. And Doug doesn't stop there because he threatens to expose secrets that could dismantle multiple families, including proof that Bill's recent poisoning wasn't an accident but a failed attempt orchestrated by someone still living under the Dupree roof, casting suspicion on everyone from Tomas to Haley, whose own lies begin to unravel when Tomas publicly exposes her as Val during a heated confrontation at the club. A moment that leaves Bill stunned into silence and Haley scrambling as her carefully curated identity disintegrates in front of witnesses. And speaking of Bill, his condition worsens dramatically during the episode when he collapses mid-argument, forcing the truth about the poisoned water back into the spotlight and leaving Nicole convinced that the threat is far from over, while Grayson's paternity bombshell continues to ripple outward as his biological father makes a surprise appearance, igniting a confrontation that threatens to destroy Grayson's sense of self just as he was beginning to find stability. And in the episode's final moments, Madison packs her bags, books a one-way flight, and leaves Chelsea a single note that reads, "I loved you until I couldn't recognize myself anymore," confirming that this breakup isn't temporary. It's final, as Chelsea watches her car disappear down the road, realizing too late that rock bottom isn't about drugs or secrets, but about standing alone with the wreckage of your own choices. And as the camera pans across Fairmont Crest, showing Naomi staring out a hospital window, Ted gripping Shanice's ultrasound photo, Doug stepping out of the shadows, and Dani vowing that she will protect Madison no matter the cost, the episode closes with a chilling voiceover promising that the gates protecting this community are officially broken and no one, absolutely no one, is safe anymore. As the fallout from Friday's revelations continues to ripple violently through Fairmont Crest, the tension only tightens as Beyond the Gates refuses to let a single character breathe. Opening the back half of the hour with Dani chasing Madison down the driveway in a desperate attempt to stop her from leaving town, only for Madison to finally break down in her arms, admitting that the worst part isn't Chelsea's betrayal but the realization that she stayed far too long hoping love would magically fix what honesty never could. And while Dani promises that Chelsea will eventually face the full consequences of her choices, Madison makes it clear she isn't running away. She's choosing survival, a declaration that resonates painfully as Chelsea, alone inside the house, spirals into withdrawal, smashing her phone against the wall and screaming Madison's name until her voice gives out, unaware that her dealer friend has already been picked up for questioning after being linked to Bill's poisoning, a development that sends shockwaves through the entire storyline as police begin circling closer to Chelsea than anyone expects. Meanwhile, Nicole confronts Ted after sensing something deeply off in his behavior, pushing him until he nearly confesses about Shanice's pregnancy before stopping himself at the last second, choosing cowardice over honesty. Yet again, a decision that immediately backfires when Nicole later runs into Shanice unexpectedly at the hospital, and the tension between the two women crackles so loudly it's almost physical, with Nicole issuing a chilling warning that if Shanice is hiding something, it will come out, because secrets in this family always do. And that ominous statement proves prophetic as Jacob overhears doctors discussing Naomi's aggressive treatment plan and lashes out at Bill in the waiting room, accusing him of poisoning the family, not just literally but emotionally for years, a confrontation that nearly turns violent before security intervenes, while Naomi watches from her wheelchair, torn between fear and guilt as she begins to question whether her illness is punishment for protecting lies that should have been exposed long ago. And as if that emotional weight weren't enough, Anita finally confronts Vanessa about Doug's shocking return, demanding answers and threatening to go public if Vanessa does explain why a man legally declared dead is suddenly very much alive, a confrontation that ends with Vanessa admitting that Doug didn't just fake his death. He stole millions in laundered money on his way out, money that multiple powerful figures now want back, placing every single Dupree in danger. And Doug proves he's not done shaking the table when he shows up uninvited at the club during Tomas and Kat's pregnancy celebration, dropping cryptic hints that the baby may not be Tomas's after all, a bombshell that leaves Kat frozen in horror and Tomas ready to kill, while Haley, already exposed as Val, uses the chaos to flee town, only to be stopped at the airport by federal agents acting on evidence Tomas secretly submitted, confirming that Haley's downfall is finally complete. But the episode saves its cruelest moment for the final minutes when Chelsea, desperate and alone, overdoses in her bedroom, collapsing just as Dani arrives too late to stop her, forcing viewers into a breathless cliffhanger as sirens wail in the distance. Madison boards her plane unaware, and the camera cuts to black on Chelsea's unmoving face, leaving one devastating question hanging in the air. Has Beyond the Gates just crossed a line it can never come back from? In the immediate aftermath of Chelsea's devastating overdose, The hospital becomes ground zero for emotional warfare as Danny rushes down the corridor screaming Chelsea's name while doctors fight to stabilize her fading heartbeat, forcing the Dupree family into a silent, horror-stricken vigil that feels less like concern and more like collective guilt. Because every single person in that waiting room knows they played a role in the spiral that led to this moment, and when Madison's plane hits turbulence midair, she experiences a sudden wave of dread she can't explain, unaware that her heart is tethered to a crisis unfolding hundreds of miles below. While back on the ground, Nicole finally pieces together the full truth about Ted and Shanice's secret connection, confronting Ted with icy precision and demanding to know whether he has once again betrayed her. And though Ted denies it, his hesitation speaks louder than any confession, prompting Nicole to vow that if he's lying, she will dismantle his life piece by piece. Meanwhile, Shanice receives news that Chelsea is fighting for her life and is racked with guilt, wondering if the chaos surrounding their circle is a warning about the storm awaiting her unborn child. As Naomi undergoes emergency pre-surgery scans that reveal the cancer may have already spread further than anticipated, plunging Jacob into raw panic as he breaks down in the chapel and admits he's terrified of losing her the same way he lost his brother. And in an emotionally brutal turn, Naomi overhears him and vows she will fight with everything she has, not just for herself, but for the family she once believed she had already ruined. But the medical crisis is quickly overshadowed by Doug's next calculated strike as he leaks anonymous documents to the press exposing decades of financial corruption tied to Bill, Vanessa, and multiple high-profile Fairmont Crest elites, igniting a media firestorm that threatens to destroy reputations overnight and sends federal investigators circling like sharks, forcing Vanessa to confront the terrifying realization that Doug doesn't want revenge. He wants annihilation, and as Tomas reels from Doug's insinuation about Kat's baby, he secretly orders a DNA test, a decision that fractures his relationship with Kat when she discovers his doubts and accuses him of betraying her trust at the worst possible moment. While Grayson, already emotionally shattered by the revelation of his biological father, confronts the man face-to-face in a raw, volatile encounter that leaves him questioning whether blood ties are a blessing or a curse. And in the middle of all this chaos, Madison's plane lands and she receives a single missed call from Danny, triggering immediate panic and sending her racing back toward Fairmont Crest despite her vow to leave everything behind. And as Chelsea finally regains consciousness, weak and disoriented, her first whispered word is Madison's name, only to learn that Madison left town believing their love was already dead, a realization that breaks Chelsea more deeply than any withdrawal ever could. While the episode builds to a thunderous climax when Doug appears publicly for the first time since being declared dead, stepping into a live televised interview and announcing that the truth about Fairmont Crest is coming, and that no family, no marriage, no secret is safe. Before the camera cuts to each character in turn, Madison speeding down the highway, Naomi being wheeled into surgery, Shanice clutching her stomach in fear, Ted drowning in regret, Nicole burning with suspicion, Tomas staring at DNA results he isn't ready to open, Chelsea crying alone in her hospital bed, and Doug smiling like a man who has already won, as the voiceover promises that the real war has only just begun. AS sirens scream through the night, and the camera lingers on Chelsea's motionless body. The tension doesn't release, it multiplies, because when paramedics rush into the Dupree house and load her onto a stretcher, Danny is forced to make the most brutal phone call of her life, telling Madison that Chelsea has overdosed just as Madison's plane begins to taxi down the runway, triggering a breakdown so raw and violent that she collapses in the aisle, screaming Chelsea's name as passengers stare in horror, forcing the flight to be delayed and creating a cruel twist of fate that drags Madison back into the very life she was trying to escape, while Chelsea is rushed into emergency surgery and declared clinically unstable, leaving doctors unsure if she will survive the night. And as Danny prays in the hospital chapel, blaming herself for not seeing the signs sooner, Nicole arrives and is hit with the reality that this family is unraveling in real time. A realization that becomes even more horrifying when police inform her that Chelsea's dealer friend has confessed to being part of a larger drug distribution ring connected to money laundering operations. linked to Doug's stolen millions, confirming that Doug's return isn't just emotional, it's criminal, systemic, and deadly. And Doug proves his power when he sends Vanessa a video message showing surveillance footage of her meeting with a known crime figure years ago, threatening to release it unless she helps him reclaim his hidden assets, trapping Vanessa in a web of fear and loyalty that forces her to betray people she loves. While Joey begins secretly recording Doug's conversations, setting up a dangerous cat-and-mouse game that could end in blood, and across town, Shanice finally breaks under the pressure and tells Ted that she's going to get a paternity test whether he likes it or not, declaring that the baby will not grow up in a lie, a statement that terrifies Ted because he knows the truth will destroy Nicole, his marriage, and his public image. But fate moves faster than his lies when Nicole overhears a nurse mention Shanice's prenatal appointment, triggering suspicion that grows into obsession, pushing Nicole into full investigative mode, while at the same time, Naomi begins chemotherapy, losing her hair in a heartbreaking scene where Jacob shaves his own head in solidarity, turning their storyline into one of the show's most emotionally powerful arcs, a rare pocket of love in a world rotting with secrets. But even that purity is threatened when medical records mysteriously go missing, suggesting someone is manipulating Naomi's treatment plan for leverage, pulling her illness into the wider conspiracy. And just when viewers think the episode has hit its limit, Tomas uncovers DNA results proving the baby cat is carrying may belong to Bill, not him, detonating their relationship and igniting a violent confrontation that leaves Bill hospitalized again, while Grayson, already shattered by his father's return, spirals into identity collapse and addiction relapse, proving that trauma in Fairmont Crest is generational, contagious, and inescapable. And in the final sequence, Madison rushes into Chelsea's hospital room just as Chelsea briefly regains consciousness, whispers "I'm sorry," and flatlines, forcing doctors into emergency resuscitation as Madison screams for them to save her. Danny breaks down completely, Nicole collapses, and the screen cuts to black with one chilling caption: "To be continued," confirming that Beyond the Gates has officially crossed into full-scale tragedy territory, where redemption is uncertain, survival is not guaranteed, and love is no longer protection. It's just another vulnerability waiting to be exploited. As Fairmont Crest reels from Doug's chilling televised declaration, the town descends into a state of collective paranoia where every whispered conversation feels like a confession waiting to be exposed, and the pressure explodes first inside the hospital as Madison finally arrives, breathless and shaken, locking eyes with a barely conscious Chelsea through the glass of the ICU. A moment so loaded with unfinished love and irreversible damage that neither woman can bring herself to speak, while Danny watches helplessly, knowing that even survival may not be enough to undo what's been broken, and Chelsea, drowning in shame, refuses to see Madison at first, insisting she doesn't deserve forgiveness, setting up a painful slow-burn arc where redemption feels possible, yet terrifyingly out of reach. While elsewhere, Nicole's simmering suspicion turns volcanic when she discovers security footage placing Ted near the abandoned community center on the night Shanice revealed her pregnancy, a discovery that confirms her worst fears and leads to a blistering confrontation in which Nicole accuses Ted of humiliating her yet again, vowing that if the child is his, she will ensure he never gets the chance to play hero. And as Ted collapses under the weight of his choices, Shanice faces her own reckoning when her husband begins asking questions about her sudden hospital visits, forcing her to lie even deeper as guilt and fear threaten her pregnancy, while Naomi's surgery stretches on for hours, leaving Jacob and Anita clinging to each other in raw terror until the surgeon finally emerges with guarded optimism, revealing the cancer was more extensive than expected but removed for now, a fragile victory that feels bittersweet as Naomi awakens determined to tell her family every truth she's been hiding before it's too late. Meanwhile, Doug's chaos campaign accelerates when leaked documents trigger surprise arrests tied to the money he stole, sending shockwaves through the elite and pushing Bill into a corner where his only defense may be exposing someone even worse, a move that terrifies Vanessa as she realizes Doug still holds proof that could link her directly to the poisoning attempt, while Tomas finally opens the DNA results in a quiet, devastating moment only to discover the baby is his, a truth that brings relief, but also crushing guilt for ever doubting Kat, who senses something was wrong and demands honesty, unknowingly standing on the edge of a fracture that could still split them apart. And as Grayson rejects his biological father publicly, choosing the family who raised him over blood, viewers witness a rare moment of emotional clarity amid the chaos, but that clarity shatters when Doug targets Grayson next, hinting that his mother's past is far darker than anyone knows, and the episode races toward its final act as Chelsea is finally discharged under strict supervision. Stepping back into a world that feels colder and less forgiving, Madison, standing at her side but refusing to promise anything beyond honesty, while the closing montage delivers one last gut punch. Nicole staring at a pregnancy test she secretly took herself, Shanice bleeding in a hospital bathroom, Ted alone and broken, Naomi vowing to survive, Doug watching Fairmont Crest from a distance like a king surveying conquered land, and a final voiceover warning that beyond these gates, love is dangerous. Truth is lethal, and the next secret to surface will change everything forever.